Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Nick Keesey. It's great to have you join us today.
Thank you. Super excited to be here.
As am I. Can you share a little bit about yourself and your business?
So, longtime entrepreneur, have had 5 businesses now. I've seen all the ups and plenty more downs, and just trying to share, give back my wisdom, my experience now to anybody who's getting started out and looking to scale a business.
Out of curiosity, what was the difference between the ups and downs? Was it something you were doing, or was it just market conditions or something?
No, typically is something I'm not doing. Of course, there were definitely market conditions that impacted the business. I mean, there's been some big events that happened over the last 10 years, and those definitely impacted. But I think I tend to look more back at the things that I wasn't doing, like leadership, business structure, and organization, and just I think the biggest one, to be honest with you, is focus. Not having enough focus and just like locked into what you're really doing, always looking for, trying new things, pivoting too much, like all the shiny object syndrome, it gets brutal. And it doesn't ever slow down. Like even when I got one business to like 2.5 million a year and I still was like, I was so used to like trying different things to get it to grow that when I found what was working, like I didn't even realize it. I'm like, oh, we got to keep looking. We got to keep, so it gets crazy. Yeah. So the organization and a good plan is really,
So when you say organization, like what does that mean?
that means really dialing in, seeing the bigger picture of the business. A lot of people are just, you're like the money problems are like strangling you, right? When you have money problems in a business and you're trying to get it off the ground, it's like 2 inches in front of your face. That's all you can see. So a lot of people, and myself included, struggle to see the bigger picture. Like, what is the purpose of this business and where is it going? So do I have it set up in a way that it can actually scale? And like, is this what I even want to do? You can get trapped in a business you hate just because it turned into like the offer that was making money was not what you originally intended, and then you burn out because it's like you don't even like your job, right? So it's just really like start to finish, what is the purpose of this business?
You work with Grant Cardone, so you work with a lot of business owners. I'm just wondering, is there a certain thing that like, are there certain characteristics that happen for those who succeed and those who don't? Or just from your general kind of background in that, is there, because you mentioned like they got into a business they didn't love. They didn't sit down and figure out how much cash they need to get to to market scale or these types of things. Are there certain attributes that are more apt to lead to success versus doom you to failure?
100%. And this isn't anything from like, when I worked with him with grants, any data specifically on his clients. Obviously, I can't share
Right.
that.
I don't expect
But
that.
what I would say is there's definitely characteristics, and I see this in my own coaching business, is the certainty in terms of what you want to do. Um, I think it comes with the mindset of, I was just talking about this the other day, like, the entrepreneurial mindset. There's entrepreneurs that set out to grow a business because that's their passion. They love business. They want to create a lifestyle for themselves. And there's people who don't like their job, so they want to get into business.
Hmm.
If you are starting a business because you just don't like what you're currently doing, then find a job you like. Don't start a business because starting a business is significantly more work and a lot less instant gratification. Like it's going to be much slower for you to make money. You're going to make way less money as a business owner for like a very long period of time than you will as an employee in someone else's business. So you've got to have I think the intention needs to be there.
I know a lot of business owners that actually would make more money if they were employees.
Yeah, it's really common. It is. Yeah.
And it shouldn't be. You should make the money. Otherwise, there's something wrong in the business, I guess.
So I used to have a home organization business. That's what I was doing when we first met. And it was a high-end luxury service, it was a few $100s per hour. And typically my projects were like anywhere from 10 to 15,000. All of our clients, most of them, like I would say 80% or more, were all like executives, people that had been working at companies for a very long time. They had a really nice home, a lot of savings, investments. They had real estate portfolios, stock portfolios, and there was very few business owners. Now, the business owners I did work with were typically like super high net worth individuals. Like I've worked with Major League Baseball team owners, venture capitalists, people in private equity and finance and different things like that. But the majority of my clients in that space were employees. And that just goes to show and I think it comes down to if you do one thing consistently for a very long time, you get really good at it and you're able to get paid a lot more. And entrepreneurs are typically bouncing from one thing to the next. And you also have to learn like all the skills that come with that. You need to fill every department. And so that just spreads your skill set to all and your focus to all these different areas. Whereas an employee, like, yes, they're doing a lot of different jobs, but the main thing is usually focused in one area, right? And then you can just become a master at that thing and get paid a lot.
Well, it's true because most business owners are wearing multiple hats, right? And throughout the business. And because they're wearing multiple hats, they have endless things to do. Some they love, some they hate. And they probably ignore the ones they hate, which drag the business down. And they do the ones they love, even if it's not driving profit and cash flow, because that's what they love doing. And they don't sit in the right seats and they don't learn to turn stuff over. And if it's something you don't like, you're probably pretty inefficient. Not to mention, depending on the business owner, I notice a lot of them do busy work, which is stuff that keeps you busy. And actually, I see in a lot of businesses, there's a lot of busy work, stuff that keeps you busy, but does nothing to drive revenue.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
100%.
how do you help people with all of that?
So what I'm doing now is really helping people clarify and actually build a strategic plan for their business, meaning who am I helping? What am I helping them with? Limiting the scope significantly. That's the main thing so that they can really focus their attention on like, what's the one thing I'm really good at that I can just smash it out of the park and my clients are going to love me. And then over time, I can add to that, right? And when you do that, what you can do then is streamline all the other areas of your business. So your marketing channel is now much simpler. Your sales process is predictable. If you bring if every customer is the same and they're getting the same service, it's very easy to find them, get in communication with them with the right message, bring them through a marketing channel, and then sell them with a very intentional process. Whereas if you're offering all these different products and services, they're coming from all different directions and you don't know which one's working and why, and you just get lost. So less is more really does matter. And what I found is that people don't ever think about that at all. They just think about how am I going to get paid today? And what happens is they just continue to only get paid today and they don't build the business.
When you do that, do you actually take the time to say, hey, if you follow this particular track, I mean, whatever their thing is that they want to do, it's going to make money? And do you actually sit down and figure out if that is a viable, good money making path?
Absolutely. And that's the biggest point of this is because most people actually start a business to create some sort of a lifestyle, which is going to require income and also their time, right? And what they're doing. So the purpose is to see like, how does this business model align with my personal goals and will I be able to achieve them? How is it actually profitable? Is it scalable? And what do I need to do to get more out of the same client? So building an ascension plan. It's okay to have a cheaper service for like, let's say I'm selling B2B services, right? Like coaching or something like that. It's okay to have a $500 product to get someone in, but you need to have a $5,000, a $10,000, a $20,000 product also, right? Otherwise, it's just never going to pay off. And it's much harder to sell a cheaper service than it is a more expensive service across like all industries.
Repeat that.
It's harder to sell a cheaper service than a more expensive service.
Do most people know that?
No, everybody thinks it's going to be easier to sell a cheaper service, and it's not. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to ask why. Why is it harder to sell a cheaper service than a expensive one.
There's different, it can be different for different industries, but typically you're solving a lesser problem for someone. So it's not as urgent. And there's the problem with the delivery, right? So if you are in distress financially, it's really hard for you to take care of your clients and show up, right? And most people have the mindset of, I'm going to sell a cheaper service so I can try to automate a big part of it. This is really big in the coaching and consulting space where people want to make courses. They want to limit their interaction with people. And they think if I throw up a landing page and just say, hey, buy all my stuff for $297, it's going to be a no brainer, easy for them. Well, no, it's much harder to communicate with someone over a landing page with, marketing copy than it is to just talk to someone and figure out what their real problem is. This comes back to the sales process, which is if someone's buying on your website, who's the salesperson? They are their own salesperson. They're handling their own objections. They're telling themselves, oh, this is cool. I'll do this later. There's no one there to ask and say, hey, why was this important? Why did you even want to do it to begin with? Like, why not last year? Why not next year? Like, why do you even want to do it now? Right. And it gets them talking. And then suddenly they realize how important this is to them, and they would actually rather pay more to have you solve it with them. So like done with you and done for you services, way easier to sell than DIY. Like not even close. I don't offer any done DIY services anymore. If I give a DIY like a course, I just give it for free. I don't want to try to sell it. I would rather just give them value, let them experience it, experience me, and then say, hey, I want to talk to you about like doing something with you, and then charge $3, $4, $5,000 for like a done with you hybrid kind of program.
And that makes sense. And I think a lot of business owners want done for you or done with you. It's probably only a beginning business owner that wants the do it yourself. And at that point, they're probably struggling with cash anyway. And
Yeah.
so they're just in that mode of take. And there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's just where you're at in the scheme of things.
Yeah, great point you made. So, really good example. When I started my home organization business, so we would do decluttering and organizing people's homes, and it's a huge market. Everybody that I talked to would say, "Oh, I need that service," right? And when we first started, we didn't know who to target, and we just put ourselves out there and we took whatever clients came and we worked with people from all different economic levels, right? Over time, though, like over the first year or so, we started to realize that it was much easier to sell wealthy families because not only do they have the money, that wasn't the reason, it's because they were used to paying people for this kind of thing. So it's not that they were like, I would say they asked for more discounts than someone who was like making like 50 or $60,000 a year, right? And they were multimillionaires. I would show up at their house after they asked me for a discount, and they'd have like, multiple Ferraris in their driveway, and I'm like, why did this person need 10% off? You know what I mean?
Because I got to pay
So
for the Ferrari. That's why.
exactly. Exactly. But it's just they're used to buying that kind of service. It was an easier sale. They valued their time more and they wanted to outsource that work. And then we enjoyed the work a lot more too, because we were typically like unpacking brand new stuff. It's like their second home, and you know what I mean? So all around, it was just an easier sale. And there was a lot of freelancers in the market and like other beginner organizers to serve the other people in the space, right? So it's not like we're forgetting about people and, oh, I don't want to work with anyone that doesn't make $1 million a year, but like you have to pick, right? And who's got my money, right? Like who's got my money? Who's going to pay me? Because I'm doing the same amount of work regardless. I could charge $200 an hour, $500 an hour, $20 an hour. At the end of the day, like I'm going to deliver those results to my clients. So I need to just go where I can get paid, right? Like if you don't have it, I can't get it, right? And it is a business at the end of the day. So
It is a business, isn't it? And
yeah,
we can't forget that. So you got a program called Simplify to Scale. It's a framework. So how does that work and how does it help entrepreneurs?
great question. So basically, the service is in the title. So eliminate like 90% of what you're doing and focus on one thing. So get rid of all the distractions, get rid of the social media channels that aren't working, get rid of the different services you've put together that you think are important because your competitors are doing it. Really just dial it into one thing so you can become a master at it. Find one audience and take them through a very intentional sales process so you can work with fewer people, make more money, have a bigger impact, and then be in a position to actually scale, because scaling doesn't come until you've got your service really dialed in. It's not about getting more people, it's about refining everything, getting the right people in terms of clients. That way you can then hire people to come work for you and say, this is what I need you to do. And it's very clear. I've done it 10,000 times, and this is exactly the thing you need to do. If you're still figuring it out and you hire employees, then they're now just mini versions of you doing a different job every day. And they actually become way more work than just continuing to do it all by yourself.
I find most entrepreneurs are not good at taking what's in their head and putting it in somebody else's head or lap to say, do this way, and here's why.
Yeah. Well, so entrepreneurs are very creative, and some of them have the dual ability to be organized and structure that, and most of them don't. So I didn't. I definitely did not have that, and it's something that I struggle with to this day. But that's actually what inspired me to start this business, is because it is something that I really struggle with. And I
Hmm.
know how much other entrepreneurs are really suffering over implementation. And then how do I remove myself from the process and make sure that I can continue to create and grow the business? And the only way to do that is to create like standard operating procedures. And you can't do that if you can't say very clearly what somebody needs to do.
I usually recommend they hire somebody to do the SOPs and not to necessarily ask their people to create SOPs, because I find that people who are good at doing the work are not good at creating the system to do the work. It's two different skill sets. You're good at doing the work, but if I ask you to create an SOP, it's not going to work. That's just what I have found. Am I the anomaly, or is that the norm?
No, that's definitely the norm.
So are you helping create the SOPs, or are you just helping them go from the 90% to the 10%?
Yeah, there's phases. At the beginning, it's going from 90 to 10, simplifying, increasing the revenue. Once you have a period of time where things are now more consistent and stable, then you can begin to build the SOPs. And you can build like outlines of them. Simple things like a content calendar. Hey, what am I going to talk about? This is a big one. What are my content pillars? Where do I go look for ideas, and how can I, schedule what I'm going to be recording, so when I sit down to make some content, I'm not sitting down to figure out what to record. I'm just ready to go, right? Like little things like that. But I would definitely recommend bringing someone in to formally, someone who's nerdy like that, to formally map out every single process.
I'm nerdy like that.
That's great. I love it. We need
I
more
don't
people like you.
I don't but I don't really do it for my clients. I tell them, "Hey, this is what needs to be done," and I'll look at their stuff and say, "Yes, no," or "These are the things to look at." I'm much more just focusing on the financial piece, and we'll build the systems and processes around the financial piece. And part of the reason is I think in order to do that other work, I got to be eyes on ground more so, especially for depending on the type of place. And that would just suck up a lot of my time. And which, going back to what you talked about, it makes for a much harder business model. And so while I'm really good at it and I could get paid well, the business model doesn't suit my desires. Whereas everything I do now, we can do all electronically, and we can meet kind of like we're meeting right now. And I can pull all the data from all their systems without them having to get involved. And we've got a systematic process for all of that. So it's easy to follow and replicatable throughout. And then all the stuff that I don't want to do, my VA takes care of. We either systematize it or automate it or remove it. Like that was my thing. And I always talk about email. I got overwhelmed because you get 10 billion emails these days as a business owner, right? Everyone's pitching you. Half of it's scams, half of it's spam, half of it's something you signed up for 8 years ago that you didn't want. And so I started looking at it and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm going to pay people to go through my garbage? I'm like, that's not happening. And so I actually found an automated system to sort my email so that I only got to see what I wanted to see. And then everything else went into levels or it just disappeared. But other things you actually have to touch. And when I have to touch it, if I don't want to do it, like all this podcast stuff, like when we are done, they take over and all the systems and so forth are done. But even with our deliverables to our clients, we've automated it, a couple buttons and everything flows so that we're not spending hours trying to recreate the wheel. And going back to what you said, we use the same overall system for everyone, but we customize it to them. So it's just so much easier. So I get it. I naturally think that way. So when I look at my business owners, I know because they're all running around. I'm like, can you please stop with the fires?
Yeah. Yeah. Just make your life easier.
Yeah,
You
make your
said
life easier.
something that stuck out. You said just because you're good at something doesn't mean you have to do it. And this is a really important concept, not only in your tasks for your business, right? You might think you're really good at something. You don't want to let someone else do it because maybe you could do it better. First of all, you need to let other people get in there to free up your time so you can move the business forward, but also goes back to, launching new services and stuff like that. Just because you're good at something doesn't mean you have to sell it, right? You could help people with all the SOP implementations, but that's not what you want to do. You could make money with a lot of things, but is that what you want to spend your time doing? And I think that people are not in alignment with their purpose, and then they struggle. You should be doing the things that you really like. There's going to be elements you don't like, but the main function of the business should be something you're really excited about.
The elements you can hand off. And I've noticed that with a lot of people who, because I'm very friendly with people in my space. So I'm always talking to people who do what I do. They come on the podcast. We sit and chat about business. I don't mind sharing all my stuff. But what I've noticed is sometimes they're like, I have this opportunity. And I'm like, you realize that opportunity, you're gonna get paid a quarter of what you're getting paid now. Why would you do that? And they're like, oh, but I'm like, but why? Like, if you stay focused on what you're doing, you're going to get paid 4 times more. And the more you do it, the higher, your rate goes because the better you get at it. Why are you getting all of this looking around and doing all these things that don't serve you? Because it sounds exciting.
Yeah.
So, what do you do with those people? How do you help them? Because I struggle with that in helping them.
Yeah, well, I always start with their personal goals first because nobody starts a business without thinking about why they want to do it. So I always, first of all, go over all their personal goals. What impact do you want to have? Why are you doing it? What, income are you looking for? What kind of lifestyle are you looking for? And what kind of work do you want to be doing? Right? That foundation is going to really clarify the different options because then we can start looking at the how, like the vehicle of making those become a reality, which is the actual business itself. And then if you start with that, as you're making the projects and the plans and you're writing everything out, the business needs to always be in alignment with those. You can look at it like a vertical line. If all your goals are here and then your business is now taking you over here, well, you're far away from the goals, right? You got to get back on the track up to where you were hoping to reach, right? And so having that in place, there's like that guiding light that when they get distracted, which is inevitable, it's going to happen sometimes multiple times a day or an hour, right? You can always just check in with yourself and say, hey, okay, I was doing this. Maybe I need to get back on track. How is this in alignment with my purpose and my goals and the people I'm trying to help? And is this something I can sustain? And so it all comes back to like the why they're doing it, but a much deeper than just like start with why, right? I love start with why. You need to really, really, really look at that.
And I agree with you. I think the biggest thing I find is they are constantly getting pulled in a million directions and they don't know how to say no to their own people. Do you help them with that or no?
Percent. So you need to be the decision maker. So it's okay to have people around you supporting you, but you need to remember who is running the business and you need to be able to trust your own decisions. It's not about a power thing. It's about trusting your own ability to make a decision without having to run it past 10 other people. right? Because they weren't there with you when you started, and they're not going to be there with you for every decision the rest of the way there. And so you have to lead with certainty. If you have certainty, like, you can make the wrong decision as long as you commit to a decision and you take massive amounts of action, you're going to be successful. But if you're always changing your mind and going back and forth and wishy-washy, you're not going to bring certainty to the business, to your clients, your team, and ultimately it just drags you down.
I know. It's just this is the constant conversation we have all the time
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
learning to let go, learning to let somebody else solve the problem, even if you can do it faster, better, quicker. Because you will then always be sucked into fixing the problem, and people will just abdicate and go, "There's a problem. We'll just call Nick. He'll fix it because that's what he always does for us."
Oh yeah, no, I have clear boundaries. I have no
And I'm using
problem.
you as the proverbial listener here of
Exactly.
within their business.
Yeah.
I get it. Is there anything that we should have talked about that we didn't get a chance to?
Oh man, that's a great question. And yes, you need to learn how to sell. So I think this is the most avoided and underrated skill for all entrepreneurs. And that is that you need to be able to talk to your clients and persist and close a deal, not for your benefit, but for theirs, right? You can't help them until they close, until they actually buy from you. And you cannot grow your business until you can do that. And most business owners that I meet are afraid of talking to their clients. They're uncomfortable talking about money. They don't want
Mm.
to persist. And that is not only slowing them down, but it's preventing their clients from getting the solution that they really need and want. And so I recommend everybody get sales training, professional sales training. There's tons of programs out there, and there's a lot of free stuff. You don't need to buy a course or a trainer, even though I've done all that. But that is the number one skill that's going to move you forward. Your offer can be off, your marketing can be off, but if you can talk to someone and actually figure out what they really want and make them an offer that really solves their problem, they're going to buy.
What I have found is if you're going to get training, it really makes sense to get training for somebody who's in your industry and in your particular line. So I'll just pick solar panels, right? If you
Mhm.
sell solar panels, the person who sells solar panels and created a solar panel sales course is better than a general sales course or some other because they understand the motivations of that specific buyer and what the problem is, the pain points, and so forth. And they know the language to use and how to do the cycle and some of the different parts. Because at the end of the day, sales is a big part of sales is psychological, and each product has their own psychological pull. Like those Ferraris, they got a certain psychological pull that's very different than getting my house decluttered, right? Very different psychological pull. And so just finding the people who can help you understand that for your client base. I know once I found that for me, it was a game changer.
Yeah, if you're new to sales, especially, it's easier if you can just have a plug and play system specifically. Once you know sales, though, like, I can sell anything, it doesn't matter. But the key difference I would say is like the sales cycle itself, because you can talk to clients and figure out what their pains are, what the right questions are to ask. It's like the sales cycle that really changes. Like, hey, is this a one call close or is this a 6 month follow up? Is there all the different decision makers involved? And so it depends what that's where the industry really comes in, is figuring out like, how do you handle this? Because, if you're selling coaching, it's a lot easier to dig in, because even though it's like a lot of it's B2B, it's really like B2C. You're really more talking about people's personal goals, their personal desires. Whereas if you're talking about, like, you're selling software or something, they don't really care about that. That's not motivating them. So it's all about the numbers, it's all about the delivery. There's status involved. Hey, how's this going to make me look when I recommend it to the, like, it's very, yeah, there's different nuances. So yeah, if you can get a specialized training, obviously do that.
And that's true. I came from a sales background too, but it was more understanding the language of the client. That was a big
Hmm.
part of it. Like, what are they really people are going to tell you what their problem is, but that's not their real problem, right?
It's never.
It's underneath that, and truly understanding what that underneath driver is what really helps. And the faster you can get to it, the better. That's all.
Yeah, you got to dig in. I go super deep. I won't move on in the sales process until I am crystal clear on exactly what the person wants. When you get to the end and you ask for the money, that's when they're going to say they need to think about it. They got to talk to their spouse. They got to do this. They got to do that. Let me crunch the numbers. And then that's when you can use that and say, hey, I love that. And by the way, that's the right thing to do. You should think about it and talk to your spouse and crunch the numbers. But you just said you wanted to do X, Y, and Z, and you've been waiting 5 years. So do you want to wait another 5 weeks, or can we do this today? Right. But if you didn't spend that time earlier in the call to go deep and you just took their one short answer of why they want to do it, you don't have anything to lean on. And there's no pain there that you can remind them of. Right.
No, and that's very correct. I think a lot of salespeople think that closing is the hardest part. And I've always said closing is the easiest. And if you do the job well, you don't even have to close. Because somewhere in the midst of your having a conversation, they're like, how do I sign up? How
The
do we
key,
get started?
the key is in the fact finding. That's where you
Yeah.
want to spend most of your time, the fact finding. The close happens because of that.
Yeah. And the fact finding is what is the underlying problem? And then did you show them how you could solve the problem and what the desired state is? And at the end of the day, they don't really care about our systems. They care that their problem got solved.
100%.
Yeah. Well, cool. If people would like to learn more about you, find out about your services, what's the best way for them to do that?
PremierClosers.com. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn.
Cool. We will put that in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening to the entire unedited video of the Profit Answer Man podcast. You can actually get the full podcast in audio only format here on YouTube or any other of your favorite podcast players. Don't forget to go check out episodes 1 through 13. They lay out the foundation of Profit First in the book and how to get started. In addition, we've got hundreds of episodes for you to check out. And if you remember to subscribe, you'll always be updated when we put a new one out every single week. Thanks for listening. Have a profitable week.